we welcome you to today's event, a press conference. आज की प्रेस वार्ता में आप सबका स्वागत है. The Kashmir files released on the 11th of March 2022. It will be 2 months soon. What we received in the last 2 months included a lot of empathy from common citizens across the globe. There was an outpouring of emotion, there was an outpouring of affection, there was an outpouring of support. But unfortunately with that, we also had what one could look at call as toxicity, especially if we read certain foreign media portals. What has been published there in the guise or form of reviews are opinion pieces which are far from truth. That has caused us even more trauma than the 32 years of delayed justice have. So we decided that Global Kashmiri Pandit Diaspora, that is the originator of this project, the Kashmir Files, and that has been the intellectual partner of this movie, we along with the filmmaker would address you all to talk about our concerns, because otherwise how we have been unheard all this while, we would continue to remain so. So today we have amongst our midst Mr. Vivek Agnihotri, the rock star filmmaker, globally renowned, a best-selling author, speaker, and more. We have Mrs. 𝗙صی Agnihotri, the producer of the movie, an acclaimed actress. We have Dr. 𝗙𝗵𝗲𝗏 𝗂𝗽𝗓. She is a medical health professional, and she is the Europe coordinator of Global Kashmiri Pandit Diaspora. And we have 𝗚cie𝗍𝗍𝗏, who is the international coordinator of Global Kashmiri Pandit Diaspora. So the format of today's press conference will be that each member of the panel will address you all, and thereafter the floor will be open for question and answers. Over to you, Vivek ji.
Thank you, Dimple. Thank you, everybody. Welcome, everybody. Good evening. It's so wonderful. It's a delight to see such wonderful people here. And thanks for coming at such a short notice. Actually, this was not the intent of the original press conference. Since the film released, almost 2 or 3 weeks after the film, when it really became a historical success, a lot of foreign correspondents wanted to talk to me. And so they contacted Global Kashmiri Pandit Diaspora, and they wanted to hold a press conference at Foreign Correspondents Club. Since I was traveling, I was committed, and there was no time before the 3rd of May. The president of Foreign Correspondents Club called me, and he was insisting that we do it as soon as possible. They wanted to do it last month, but I was not free, so therefore 5th of May was decided. And only after a lot of discussions, we confirmed it, and a very senior Z executive flew down specifically for this, met him, worked out all the logistics, and the monies were paid, all receipts were taken. But day before, Manoj ji baithe hain, please. No. It's an honor you are here. Manoj Raghuvanshi ji is here. Without his reporting in 1990, we wouldn't have known anything about Kashmir genocide. So it's a great honor. One of those brave, courageous journalists. I am proud of you. Aaiye baithe. Manoj ji, aaiye baithe. So, day before was the World Press Freedom Day. On that day, I got a call from the president. In fact, they gave a call to Z, and they put me on a conference call. And he said that this needs to be cancelled because some major media players, international media players, I want to underline the word international, and during this course, whenever I talk about media, I am focusing only on international media. I have nothing to say against our own media. These people put their foot down, and they said they will not allow anybody who talks about Kashmir genocide inside that campus. And they threatened to do an en masse resignation. He told me, since we are talking freely and honestly, I don't want to hide any fact, and I'm not a very politically correct person, you know by now. he categorically mentioned 3 names: New York Times, Al Jazeera and Bloomberg. There are a couple of more names which emerged later on. Yesterday, between the course of these 2 days, some members of Foreign Correspondent Club have also put it on social media in different posts, the names of the people. It's for anybody to see. And it is really unfortunate that this anti-free speech, anti-truth activity took place in a government-owned swanky bungalow, or whatever that place is, that club. And just for your information, this property is right in front of the Supreme Court, which is the highest temple of justice. And the film, the Kashmir Files, its theme is right to justice, and it was denied the press conference, which was initiated by the Foreign Correspondents Club. And also it happened on the World Press Freedom Day. Same day, they also published lots of reports how India's press freedom index is going down. And it gives me reason to believe that is a propaganda. In fact, the freedom of press is curbed by the international press, at least in my case. The reason I'm here is to discuss 2 things with you. That what this film has achieved for India, and I am only talking specifically about India. I'm a film professional, you are a media professional, but before that, above that, we are Indians. And I have reasons to believe, and there is a very, very clear-cut, obvious design that some agenda-driven media, international media houses, who are actually political activists, how they are trying to interfere in India's politics and dictate their terms, and how they are threatening India's sovereignty. It is for everyone to see. I have told you a few names before this. This film, actually, people who do not do research, for them this film released on 11th of March. But in reality, we started screening this film in November last year in US, and it was open forum. It was not restricted. Anybody could see it, and we showed it in 16 different cities, and every single city have offices of these 5-6 global media players. We invited them, we begged them, we pleaded, we literally begged to come and see the film and report the genocide of Kashmiri Hindus. None of them came. But when the film, after its release in 4 or 5 weeks, it became a historical success. When the whole world started talking about it. When the blacks, whites, Jews, Hispanics, Asians, Yazidis, Pakistanis, Israelis, Indonesians, when all of them started writing good things about this film or making videos on YouTube and everywhere, they realized that it was denting their narrative. And that's when I thought they conspired. Because one after the another, I can name all of them. I reply only on voice recordings these days just to safeguard myself. One after another, within 7-8 days, almost every major player who maligned India's image internationally without checking out the truths started calling me. And the line of question was only Hindu-Muslim. Nobody, not even one, bothered to ask me that all those victims who you have interviewed, can we talk to anyone? Not even one tried to ask me the facts I have shown are right or wrong. There were no line of question which was related to the film. They had only 2 words, and I have all of them as evidence. If the need be, I can make them public. Only 2 things they talk about: Muslims and Modi. And which gives me clear reason to believe that they are agenda driven. And whatever reply you give them, they don't care. Ultimately, they just pick up one word or one line and they put it there and you are wrongly presented. And all these articles, right from Time to BBC to Al Jazeera to CNN to The Economist, have not spoken about the film. They have not reviewed the film. In fact, they have tried to say why this film is being made at all. The people who failed to report the genocide are upset with a film being made on the genocide. And they don't have the guts to ask the same questions to Mr. Spielberg, who made Schindler's List. So, I want to tell you that under this design, under this conspiracy, our press conference was cancelled. I was advised not to speak about it. I was told by a very, very senior journalist who I respect a lot. He said, if you do that, everybody will get united. And the same thing happened with Press Club of India. After confirming everything, they also cancelled last evening. So I just want to bring a couple of things to your notice. There are 3-4 major allegations against this film, which are coming from these major agenda-driven foreign media players. Number one, in all their articles they write, this is a piece of fiction, and they write this is a piece of fiction because it is in our disclaimer. In fact, the Time has falsely reported that the film begins with a disclaimer which says this is a piece of fiction. I want you to understand this design. The disclaimer is here in front of me, CBFC certified, and we showed this CBFC certified disclaimer everywhere in the world where we have shown the film. The first line of it begins like this: this film is based on true incidents as recorded in video testimonials of the victims of Kashmir genocide. It goes on to say, to respect the dead and the victims' families, we have changed the name and timelines. It is a very ethical thing to do. All responsible filmmakers do that. If you see some of the greatest true stories, you hide the names. In the end, there is a technical line which Indian courts force you to put. CBFC forces you to put. It is not out of choice, which says that filmmaker does not take any responsibility for any kind of inaccuracy. And this is assumed from them that it's a fictional story. And since it's reported in Time and all major, these 5-6 usual suspects, therefore some people, genocide deniers, people who want to cancel this genocide story, have gone and also vandalized the Wikipedia page, and they have rewritten this film is based, it's a fictional story. Muslim police officers dying in Kashmir is a true story. Not even one Kashmiri Pandit family living in Kashmir today is a fake story. This is the narrative they are trying to create. It's for you to judge why it is being done. With all due respect, something which all the governments, I am underlining all the governments, all the civil societies, all human rights commissions, all empathy ambassadors, and especially these global media should have done, which is in any civilized society to record the testimonies of the victims. All the testimonies of Jew survivors were recorded. In every war, in any crime like this, the foreign media runs first and they record testimonies of the victims, which everybody failed to do collectively. 2 resource-less filmmakers did. Today, we are the only people in the entire world who have testimonies of the surviving victims of Kashmiri Hindu genocide. And we are very proud of this. And they are very ashamed of this. And that's why it reflects their failure and they want to destroy the credibility of this film. Second biggest allegation against us is that this film is funded by the government of India. It's very hilarious, it's very childish, I shouldn't be answering it, but I want to. This film was in the making for last 4 years. Not secretly, but openly. every day's account, if you go to our social media posts of our 𝗂𝗵𝗲𝗀 and my own, it's all out. We have reported every single thing we did in the process of researching and making this film. In fact, the name of this film was crowdsourced. When we got this idea to make this film, I put out on social media that if you have any title, give, and this title actually has come from the people. Then we invited people in to participate in the research process. A lot of research was crowdsourced. 𝗙𝗵𝗲 facilitated this entire research all over the world. We traveled all over the world. Everybody knew about this film. Nobody alleged that this is government funded or government supported. The film became a historical success in the first 4 days. By Tuesday, this was undisputable that this film is going to create a history. Till then, not even one person said it's government supported. But on Wednesday, I think, I'm not right, Tuesday evening or Wednesday, the Prime Minister spoke about it in a different context. And suddenly, it became government-funded film. Now I want to ask this question, was the genocide of 1990, was it also funded by the current government? Why was that not reported? Which means, in India, see, it's very important for you to understand, before my film, at least 7 to 8 major films were made on Kashmir terrorism. And they all big production houses, biggest of the stars, 𝗙𝗃, 𝗃𝗏, I say it all the time, I'm repeating once more, 𝗙𝗃, 𝗃𝗏, Mission Kashmir, 𝗙𝗪𝗀, 𝗂𝗽𝗱, and there are lots of 7-8 films. Few I have cleared in CBFC, they were stuck for a long time. I have cleared them, Half Widows and these kind of films. They were also cleared. So I'm not talking about smaller films which go to film festivals. I'm talking major films. All those films were set in the period of 90s, the troubled period between 85 to early 90s. None of them, not even one film, mentioned anything about Hindus, forget Hindu genocide, as if Hindus never lived in that land. If a foreigner picks up these 8 films and watches them as a history lesson, they will never ever come to know that even one Hindu lived over there. And all the films justified terrorists. So I want to ask these great players like Time and New York Times, when they praise these films, were these films sponsored by terrorists? Would you say 𝗂𝗲, 𝗙𝗃 and 𝗃𝗏 and Mission Kashmir, they were funded by terrorist organizations because they were justifying terrorism? And obviously it is written by people who have not seen the film. And they have an agenda and they have a narrative and they want to reinforce their narrative because the film is critical of the current government also. आप में से फिल्म देखी है किसी ने? Do you remember before the climax when 𝗵𝗃 is talking, what does it say? Can you say that in a funded film? And it is so embarrassing and shameful that a filmmaker has to come and justify himself because they are very powerful people and they want to create an anti-India narrative. Then there is an international political campaign against it. A very well-known leftist, far leftist I would say, a far leftist website of India, the day film was released, since then every single day they wrote an article on this film. They never did it before, ever in the past about any film. And their language and these global media players' language is exactly the same. It's just paraphrased, but the thought is the same. They blame us of Islamophobia. And this is one issue I very openly, frankly want to talk about. And after that, if you're not convinced, you can ask me as many questions as you want. I categorically put on record that Islamophobic or Islamophobia is being used as a political weapon against my film under an international political conspiracy. The film is actually anti-terrorism. The film does not use even once the word Muslim. The film does not use the word Pakistan or Pakistani. Why do they assume it's anti-Muslim? It's an anti-terrorism film. Why it is not Buddhist phobic? Why it's not Jain phobic? Why it's not Christian phobic? And above all, my question is, why it is not terror phobic? Why they are shying away from the word terrorism? And why somebody talks about terrorism, why do they say it's Islamophobic? And why Fiza and Fana and Heather, which were about terrorists, why they were not Islamophobic? Which means there is a unwritten law that if you justify terrorists, then you are a messiah of humanity. But if you talk against terrorism, you are Islamophobic. Do you understand the design? Just about my film now. The first scene of the film actually is about the brotherhood of Hindus and Muslims, without underlining it. A Hindu boy, Shiva, is being beaten up by bad people. A good Abdul comes and saves his life. After that, old Pushkarnath saves life of Abdul. People who do not know, one of the major, in fact the most important producer of this film is a Muslim. Is he Islamophobic? Are you saying the person, the Muslim who has produced this film is Islamophobic? Not even one media person has gone and researched this. And I feel very hurt about this. Most of our unit was full of Muslim, our crew, most of it was Muslim. In Kashmir, 100% of our crew was Muslims. One of the most important scenes of the film, where you see the hero, the protagonist, meets another boy and they talk on shikara. I had requested a Kashmiri Muslim activist from Kashmir Valley to write that scene. I said, you must have representation, because in the film, hero asked, tell me about Kashmir. Vivek Agnihotri writing that scene will always be half-truth. Therefore, I want you to write it. And he wrote the entire scene. I did not even change comma or full stop. That scene, we made sure, is being enacted by a Kashmiri Muslim activist boy in Kashmir. It's very embarrassing that I have to come and say all these things, but I want to expose these people who use Islamophobia, that jargon, that term, as a political weapon against us. And in USA, we were there for 2 months. The film was shown in 16 cities. That entire campaign, that logistics, every single thing of that campaign was led by one person, and he is a Muslim. The opening screening, the premiere of this film, the first premiere of this film was done in one of the oldest theaters in New York, owned by a Pakistani Muslim. He introduced us on stage. In closing, he hugged us and he said, this is one of the best films he has seen in his life, and he vows to support this film. Till date, he keeps promoting this film. The song which has become a rage now, Hum Dekhenge, we bought it from one of the greatest poets of our century, 𝗙𝗵𝗲𝗄𝗏 from 𝗙𝗵𝗲 house in Pakistan. The song before the interval, 𝗺𝗍 𝗺𝗍, you have to hear this story so you'll understand about our intentions versus their intentions. I saw a small video, 30-second clip by a tourist of a Kashmiri Muslim singer in Pahalgam. I sent my team, we flew him down to Bombay and we recorded that song. He has become my brother forever. His name is Noor Muhammad, if you want to do further research. When we were in Kashmir, shooting, we invited all the young Kashmiri boys and girls to understand their point of view. They had dinner with us. It was a big group. The photos are out on social media. Because they had dinner with us, they were threatened. Those girls, Muslim girls, had to disappear, and fatwa was issued on my name. Am I Islamophobic? You see these people in glasses? These people, they are CRPF people. I have been given security by the intelligence agencies because they fear for my life. Why those 8 or 9 big producers and directors who made films on Kashmir terrorism, they never had to bother for their life? Which means in this country, if you talk about the pain and suffering of thousands of Kashmiri Hindu victims, your life is threatened, but if you talk or make pro-terrorist films, then you can walk freely anywhere. This is a very sad state of affairs. Today, all world leaders are talking about terrorism. Everybody is talking against terrorism. The biggest threat to humanity is terrorism. Are they wrong? And what really gives me a lot of hope, hundreds and hundreds of Kashmiri Muslim boys and girls are openly writing in favor of this film on social media. You can just, people don't do research, just go and check and you will find hundreds of them. I keep retweeting. Few days ago, you must have seen my video talking to young Kashmiri boys, Kashmiri Muslim boys and girls. I have never used this term before in my life, Kashmiri Muslim. This is the first time I'm doing it. And I'm feeling very pain and very, very sad. But it is important that I expose the agenda of these foreign players. You must have seen my long conversation with Kashmiri Muslim boys and girls 3-4 days ago. I called them to my room, I sat down with them, we chatted for a long time, and then I invited them to join in my next film, which they happily did. They were trolled, threatened, and they were told, if you ever step back in Kashmir, you won't be alive. All these Muslim young boys and girls who see hope, who are talking about brotherhood, peace and harmony, this is threatening and rattling these few people who have used Islamophobia as their political weapon to shut anybody who genuinely wants humanity, peace, love and brotherhood. Because they are not interested in healing, they are interested in creating more fault lines, they are interested in creating more conflict just so that they can stop India's rise in the world geopolitical scenario. After this, I leave it to your conscience to judge about our film. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Vivek. I invite Pallavi to tell us about what transpired in terms of the film's achievements in the last 2 months. Pallavi.
Good evening, everyone, and once again, thanks for coming here today. I want to take you through some of the highlights of our film. Everyone knows how the film was received by people. But sometimes, in the course of other things, we sometimes forget small little things which are extremely important. And that's why I would like to read out a few things to you. The Kashmir Files is the first Indian film based on video testimonials of the first generation victims of Kashmiri Hindu genocide, which is the longest and continuous genocide of a minority community in the history of humanity. The Kashmir Files is perhaps the only mainstream film in the history of cinema which was shown pre-release to more than 10,000 people across the world, spread over 24 cities without fearing the commercial repercussions. It is important to mention this because no filmmaker worth his salt would show a film to thousands of people due to the fear of, bad word or mixed reaction that may go out. We were absolutely confident because our film is based on truth and only the truth. These screenings were organized by 36 humanitarian organizations ranging from World Sikh Organization to Telugu Association to Jews Association to even Physicians Association. 36 organizations with proven track record in public service, spreading the message of peace, love and humanity. This is one achievement every Indian, or actually I would say that every human being can be proud of. The Kashmir Files is the first Indian film which was given a congressional reception at the Capitol in the USA. We were also invited to prestigious scholarly academic institutions like the Harvard Club, University of Massachusetts, Georgia Tech University, Universities of Denver and Houston, and Stanford University. We were also invited to the Holocaust Museum in Washington, D.C. and Martin Luther King Memorial in Atlanta. I'm extremely proud to inform you that now we are being invited to many prestigious universities in Europe, including Oxford, Cambridge, Warwick University. We are also invited to speak at the British Parliament and many other prestigious places in Netherlands, Germany, Israel, Geneva, where we are invited to to talk at the World Human Rights Organizations. Our Europe tour is centered around the theme, India and her role in world peace and humanity. The Kashmir Files, in our knowledge, is the only film from India which has been given proclamations from various states and cities of USA, acknowledging and endorsing the inhuman genocide of the Kashmiri Hindus. The Kashmir Files is the most reviewed film on the internet, with reviews coming from all across the world, from white Americans, African Americans, Jews, Christians, Muslims, Yazidis, Pakistanis, Buddhists, and people from almost all faiths, ethnicities, and nationalities. And this has reinforced our belief that empathy and humanity cuts across religion and politics. The Kashmir Files has opened up international markets where no Indian film of this size has ever been released. And this wasn't planned by us. It was done on popular demand by the people. And it ran to jam-packed houses in Kenya, Mozambique, Norway, Sweden, Finland, Japan, and even Lithuania and Estonia, where there are hardly any Indians. This truly has become a people's film. And it is still running successfully in its 9th week in the USA. And it has already crossed its million mark long ago. And this is an honor which even the big-budgeted top star films can't achieve. The Kashmir Files released in one theatre in Kerala, but by popular demand increased to 120 screens within a few days and ran full for over 4 weeks. Same in Tamil Nadu and Bengal, where Hindi films of this size don't even release. And I must mention here that what really saddens us is the fact that the film made on Kashmir cannot be shown in Kashmir because there are no movie theatres there anymore. And it's a very, very sad commentary. And I hope that humanitarian media would focus on this issue here where, the free speech is curbed in Kashmir. On return on investment basis, the Kashmir Files, as some of you may know, was made in 15 crores and has done over 350 crores business worldwide and is still running successfully. Also, our tickets were very cheap. But had they been as expensive as the current South Indian blockbusters, then Kashmir Files would have crossed many more milestones. It released in Israel last week and it's running to full house with hundreds of teary-eyed Jews, and their reactions are pouring in every day on the internet. It's releasing in the Philippines on the 6th. When the film released, the IMDb rating was 10 on 10, but then many genocide deniers tried to cancel our ratings, and IMDb used some strange formula under pressure and locked our ratings to 8.3. When people kept voting 10 on 10, it still wouldn't increase. Even so, 8.3 is still a very, very high rating. In the history of world cinema, the Kashmir Files is the only film which has found unprecedented honor of becoming a mass movement where even the poorest of poor have been distributing free tickets to the youth. And this is something that entire humanity can be proud of. And just to give an unprecedented example, Times Square in New York is known to be the most prestigious and the most expensive advertising site. When Vivek and I reached US in 2019 for our research, we had seen a hoarding of free Kashmir. And that was the time when we thought to ourselves how good it would be if Kashmir Files can be featured on the Times Square. Last year in November and December, when we showed this film in more than 16 cities, the people who saw the film, the fans of this film, collected money on their own, and for the first time in Times Square, the entire map of Kashmir was shown. Then the billboard of the Kashmir Files was on, in which you can see the entire map of Kashmir, and never in the history has it happened, because in the West they always take out, दोनों side के सर निकाल देते हैं. This entire map of Kashmir was on full display for 2 days, 26th January, our Republic Day, and 27th of January. And this was done by all the fans. And I can narrate many firsts, but we should come back to the purpose of this film. The first purpose of making this film was to make the world acknowledge that the genocide of Kashmiri Hindus indeed happened. Acknowledgement is the first step to justice. We achieved it globally and more than we ever expected. Our second purpose was to heal the Kashmiri Hindu community, where the real empathy, which is a real empathy and humanity. And you must have seen hundreds of videos where victims are hugging us and saying that their healing is now begun. But in the end, I would like to read out 2 letters from the families of 2 victims whose heart-wrenching stories you have seen in the film. The first one is 𝗵𝗵𝗃 story, where he was killed in a rice drum and his wife was made to eat the blood-soaked rice. And the other of 𝗗𝗄𝗃, who was unfortunately gang raped first and then cut alive on a saw machine. So the first one is from 𝗵𝗵𝗃's family. Respected Vivekji and Pallavi-ji, my name is 𝗵𝗵𝗃. I am the daughter of late Shri 𝗵𝗵𝗃, whose gruesome killing was highlighted in the movie The Kashmir Files, which made people around the world cry. His death was completely horrifying and traumatic for us, especially my mother, who has become a physical wreck after it. We decided to bury this pain in our heart and never talked about it, or even my dad, as an act of self-preservation. But after 32 years, this movie forced us to relive that pain. It is extremely hard, but at the same time, I believe it is helping us heal. This movie made it possible for us to celebrate my dad's life and sacrifice. I would like to express my gratitude from the bottom of my heart to both of you, as well as the entire Kashmir Files team. It would not have been possible without your efforts. And the second message is from 𝗗𝗃𝗃's family. We watched your movie today. My late sister 𝗗𝗃𝗃 was a brave girl, and we never discussed or even talked about her at home. The whole family was going through depression and guilt of not being able to do anything for her. Few years back, Sunanda Vashisht spoke about her brutal killing in DC. Now you've showed a sacrifice in this movie. We've started talking about her within our family. Your movie is starting the healing process within the traumatized family, within the traumatized families. And I think this message is probably bigger than Oscar for us. And so now I leave it to your conscience and your good judgment. If this is not healing and humanity, then what is? Thank you very much.